Hello, my name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and this is Communiversity. Communiversity is a virtual initiative that is focused on empowering the Black community with practical knowledge and life skills, sharing tools to enhance physical, mental, spiritual, social, cultural, and economic health and well being. It's my honor to facilitate this conversation today, in particular, because it's something that I've thought about a lot and have struggled with over time. And it's like how to buy a car, when to buy a car, how to navigate that process. I was a person who didn't start driving until my senior year in college. And so, just like navigating and figuring out how to purchase the car and how to keep it maintenance, all those things were pretty new to me. And so personally, I want to make sure that no one else has to go through that same struggle if they don't have to. I want to provide them with the information on how to navigate the car purchasing process and even that thinking about navigating all those things. With that, this program is the brainchild of Minister Ronnie Vanderhorst, who is a mentor of mine, who was passionate and continues to be passionate about empowering the Black community. So with that, I want to introduce you to Mr. Rick Murphy. He is someone that has been in the field of finance for nearly 2 decades and in the car business for nearly a decade. And I am so excited that he is here with us today to share some of the insights he has on navigating the car purchasing process. How you doing, Rick?
Good, Sydney, and thank you for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So with that, um, let's start with this question. So how much should a person budget for their first car? So we're thinking about this audience, which is those between the ages of 18 and 24. So they don't have a lot of money, but they're thinking about purchasing that first car on their own. How do they navigate that?
Sure, that's a good question. I think how much is going to vary by situation. I know you said your audience may not have a lot of money. You might have some of your audience that might have more than others.
Mm-hmm.
The car market right now is extremely tricky over the last few years, especially post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is you can see is accelerated in pricing due to inflation. So I, off the top of my head, I would probably say if they can get to maybe around 7 grand. I think that's a good starting point for a used car. Of course, you can get cars that are a little less than that. However, it can be a little challenging in terms of what you get. They say a lot of times you get what you pay for. And sometimes if you feel it's too good to be true, 9.5 times out of 10, it is. And so I know 7,000 may seem like a lot. That number used to be, 5 years ago, we probably would have that number. You can get a little bucket for
Yeah.
3,500.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just so tricky right now to find something like that. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's really hard to. So even 5,000, like I've seen, just the what you get, the prices just creeping up. And so it's funny, Sydney, because a few years ago, pre-pandemic, you could buy a car back then that was newer for less than it is now, even though it's older now. So
Wow.
in certain cars, certain cases. So it's been very an interesting market. But anyway, it's a long way of me answering your question. I would say about 7 grand. is a good starting point. Again, you can do a little less than that possibly, but that's the number I would go with. Again, and it's going to vary by situation, what they're looking for and what their need is as well.
Yeah, so with that, one of the things that I've seen just in my personal life is that there's, these taxes and fees. And so could you talk about, like, so somebody may put 7,000 aside, but they're not
Mhm.
thinking about necessarily the insurance and other fees, other things that come into play. Could you maybe talk us through that?
Sure. So, yeah, just the purchase price is just a starting point, and most dealers advertise the cost of the car.
Right.
So, you have to make sure when you're shopping, you ask them. Sometimes, some very rarely, but sometimes they'll include the taxes and fees into the price of the car. But they'll usually state that as, "Hey, this is the out the door price." That's a term that's used in our industry a lot. So that's your taxes, your dealer fees, any other little admin fees that they may build into there are included into that. Your title fees, and things like that. So when you see a listed price, ask them, "Hey, does this include the taxes?" No. Okay, well, they can. How much are the taxes with this? And they can tell you very quickly because they already have a formula pre-populated for that. Okay, then what's the dealer fee on this? And being in Georgia, I don't believe there's a cap on dealer fees, so you have to inquire on what that fee is. Some are reasonable, and
Mm.
hey, some are justified because they're admin things that go into it. There's research, there's transport, there's things that are legitimate fees. On the other hand, those fees can get inflated with some dealers, and they can really add on to the burden of the cost of the car. And you can kind of negotiate that sometimes with the dealer maybe. But one thing that people can do is if they're shopping, if they know, hey, this is my number, baseline number that I want to spend on the car before taxes, they can just go online, Google the DMV, find out how much taxes are in their county that they're in, uh, or city or state. It varies obviously depending on where you live. Um, but for the Atlanta Metro and the state of Georgia, you can go. It's the TAVT uh, tax
What does
calculator
that
that you can
stand
put
for?
in.
Mhm.
Oh, you asked me this tax ad valorem and something else I forget. But just type in TAVT calculator for Georgia if you're in the Georgia area, and you could put the price of the car and everything, and it can kind of give you an estimate on what your taxes will be.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about is, you know, do I get a used car or do I get a new car? And I'm sure some of our younger professionals are probably thinking about what, how do I know what type of car to go after, even if I do have a nice sum of money. What are some of the things that you think about when purchasing a car related to whether it be new or used?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sydney. My opinion is go used,
Mm,
especially at a younger age or just starting off in life. If you're trying to build assets, a car is a depreciating asset. Cars typically lose. A new car typically loses 20% in value after the first year,
mm.
and then subsequently maybe about 15% after that. So, I would say, unless you're just really, have it like that, I would say, okay, get something new. But even then, I think it's just no need to do that. But to the audience we're speaking to, buy a used car, even if you have a nice sum of money, because that extra money you can use to invest and build up some more money in a few years, if you so decide, hey, get your new car then, But I would say get a used car. Uh, and also, just as a practical note, um, Some of us are buying cars, out of necessity. Some of us are
Mhm.
buying out of necessity and also as a status symbol.
Yeah.
Check the egos. Don't worry about the status symbol. Let you be the status symbol. Who you are as a person,
Mm.
and save that money. Because a car, one thing about a car, it gets old very quick. You know what I mean? First day is
Yeah.
great. First week is good. First month is cool. You fast forward 6 months to a year, it's just a car. You're just getting from A to B. But guess what? You still have that payment that you had. You still have that insurance that you have to factor in as well. So that's the other advantage of buying something used. Your insurance will be a little lower typically than a new car. In some cases, your maintenance, depending on how used you go and everything. And so, used doesn't mean bad, doesn't mean beat up. Get you a clean car, get you a good car, get you a reliable car. But from a practical standpoint, something that's brand new, as a finance person, that I don't advise it.
Mhm.
And as a car person, both. I have both hats on. I
Yeah.
don't advise it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about like how someone actually pays for this car, and what are some financing options that they can access, especially if they haven't developed a strong credit history yet.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question there. Um, Obviously, saving is one. And
Hmm.
again, I know people's situations are different. So some
Hmm.
people can afford to save and take their time, and I suggest that. And if you're in the process of trying to establish credit, it's still good to save and come up with some money. You can find that's less. You're going to save more money that way. If it's more of an immediate need, I would say, and you don't necessarily have, you know, a high credit or best credit or anything like that. Um, I would say, you can start off and maybe try with a small bank, local bank,
Hmm.
or credit union. Credit unions are great. I don't want to give one specific because they're not paying me to endorse them. But if you want to contact me, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to give some specific recommendations. But credit unions are a good place to start. Uh, Many times from what I've seen, their rates are a little lower and they're a little bit easier to deal with than some of the bigger banks. Um, if you just have no credit or bad credit and you just like
Hmm.
need a car, you do have some fringe lenders. I'm not really recommending those, but
Hmm.
some people have some situations where, hey, I'd rather pay a higher interest rate than catching an Uber and spending, $80 to $100 a day just going back and forth to
Right.
school or back and forth to work or things like that. My only, my biggest thing with that is if you have to go that route, just have an exit plan, have a strategy to pay it off as soon as you can. So, don't tie this thing out for 3 years or anything like that. And also keep your price down because this is kind of like how you have a starter home. This would be a starter car. So this is not where you're going to land. Get you something that is not too expensive that you can pay down quickly, and then that way you're not strung out paying. You pay a little higher in interest, but you're not paying buying the car twice. You know, so
Hmm.
those would be my recommendations in terms of paying for a car and financing a car, if one so desires to go that way.
And to connect with that around getting your car pre-approved before getting a pre-approval for a
Hmm.
particular for a loan for a car before go to the car dealership. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that's always good because if you, let's just say you go to one of the credit union as I mentioned, right, and you're able to
Hmm.
get an approval. If you're going to a dealer, you have a little bit of leverage because you have the funds. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
there's some credit unions. There's a credit union I've worked with before. Well, they'll give the customer a check for this amount of money. So I think that is something that you can use as leverage to negotiate um, a good deal. Some dealers also have in-house financing, and I'm not talking about a buy here, pay here per se, but they have financing, and you may be able to use that to get an even better rate in some cases
Wow.
um,
Mhm.
than what you came in with. So I think it's always a good thing to have something going into negotiations, have some funds going into negotiations when you're going to buy a car from a dealer.
I'm thinking about quality of cars, right? So I think you kind of alluded to that. Um, are there specific like types of cars? I know you're not advertising for companies, but are there cars that you perceive to be a little more reliable? And if a person they're a single young adult, they're in college, or they're an entrepreneur straight out of high school that wants a reliable car. They want to have something that's nice, but they know they want something that's
Mhm.
reliable. Do you have any recommendations on how to kind of figure that out?
Well, yeah, it used to be the big three. This is just my opinion. So, hey, and what I've seen in my experience with my business partner, Andy Malone, who's been a mechanic for 25 years, my other partner, Timothy Coates, who owns Wagon Works in the DC, Maryland area, who's been a dealer for 35 years. Um,
Wow.
it used to be the big three: Toyota, Honda, Nissan. We'll, in our opinions, we'll remove Nissan from that big three. I would say it's the big two, Toyota and Honda. Um,
Mm.
those are very reliable cars, maintenance wise. They're not, they're not too bad. Every car, no car is perfect. Any used car you buy, it's going to have issue and everything. But Toyota being number one, and I'm not. I hate to promote them, but it's the truth is the truth, and everything.
Mhm.
Toyota, Lexus. So if you, if you feel you want to jazz it up a little bit and don't want to get a Camry, you can get a Lexus GS or ES. Um, but the Camry and the Toyota Avalon is the same as some of the Lexus models.
Mhm.
Same thing with Honda Acura. They're the same brand pretty much. Acura is the luxury version of it. But those would be my two recommendations in terms of reliability. Toyota being number one, and Toyota Lexus. They're just, especially the older ones, are just good, solid cars. They make good cars, man. So that would be my recommendation in terms of a brand. Um, I hope that answers your question.
No, that it does. And I'm thinking about is okay. So we identified the car, and now we want to know about like what's some of the best ways to negotiate to get the car. Do you have any ideas um, with regards to when you get on the lot? Do you bring somebody with you? What are some things, some best practices that will be helpful to a young person?
Sure. As a young person, if you have somebody that's a little seasoned, uh, that can come with you, whether it's a parent, a mentor, or uncle, aunt, or somebody, bring them that has, preferably if you have somebody that has real car knowledge. I think that's always good in terms of negotiating, in terms of not getting duped, because you know I know the reality of it. Uh, the car industry, we don't have the best reputation. So what you do, and you do have some legitimate, honest uh, car dealers and people that do good business in the car industry. Us being one of them, but you do have some sketchy people. So yes, bringing somebody seasoned would be good. In terms of negotiating, shop around. So uh, you know, you may see one vehicle for 12,500. You see the other vehicle for 11,500. You can use that as leverage if you really like the one that's 12.5. It's all things kind of being within range in terms of miles, excuse me, and the maintenance and the care of the car. But shop around. That's always a negotiating tool as well. Um, so those would be my recommendations in terms of trying to get a good deal. And you know what? I want to circle back to something as well in
Okay.
terms of when you're buying a car. Again, I recommended those two brands, Honda and Toyota, but also read reviews. The great thing about being in the information age is tons of it out there.
Yeah.
So I would say I would read reviews on vehicles, like the Consumer Reports and U.S. News. They rank cars. They have history. There are some YouTube channels that you can type in the car and kind of get a rundown on the car. You can look up some of the pros and cons. And for people that don't want a Honda or Toyota, I'm not saying those are the only two serviceable cars. You have a few other different ones out there that can do well, but just make sure you do your research. Also, the generation of a car as well. Some generations are better. So generation three of a certain car might be, even though it's older, might be better than generation four. And for those who may not know what I mean by generation, I'm just using examples, not exact. So generation three might be from 2008 to 2012, whereas 2004, the fourth generation might be from 2013 to 2017. It's just an example. So that
Mhm.
third generation, at 8 through 12, they're all going to be similar. It might be slight differences. Same thing with generation four. Those within that year range of 13 to 17 are going to be pretty similar. They're going to look the same and they're going to be pretty similar. So anyway, you just want to do your research on that. Um, 'cause, and also I would say look for, all vehicles have like something that goes wrong with them. You know what I mean? That they're known
Mhm.
for having issues for. So, for example, the reason we kind of don't deal with Nissans anymore, the engines are pretty good. The transmissions, the track record, they switched to a CVT transmission maybe in the mid 2000s, maybe. Um, and so after that, they have all kind of transmission issues. It's documented. You can look it up and see. Um, other cars, it might be like Toyota. They have dashboard issues. Okay, where the dash and Lexus too, where the dashes get torn up. Sometimes some shock issues and things like that. But you would rather have those type of issues than a major component issue as a engine or a transmission or something like that. So just look for, okay, what are common problems with these cars? What's the biggest problem? What are most complaints? You could do your research online with that. Um, and if you don't, you're not sure, our company, MGM Auto, we help do things like that as well. We help people find cars. We do the research. We do the due diligence. And we have a lot of experience, as I mentioned earlier. So, we can help you get in a good car. So I wanted to mention that though, just do your due diligence and research um, when you're looking for a car.
Awesome. So I'm at the dealership. I'm looking around, and I see a couple of cars that I'm really interested in,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking about test driving them. What are things
Okay.
am I looking for in that, in just going around the corner, or hitting the highway really quick to test out the car?
Yeah, you just want to kind of listen out for any noises. So I wouldn't drive with the radio on, you know, hear anything. I would look for any leaks. Just feel how it rides. You know what I mean? In terms of when I say ride, just suspension. If you feel anything like that. Um, check the oil. Um, check the oil. If it's depending how old it is, now you can't do it, but if it's old enough, you can still check the transmission fluid. So,
Mhm.
and this is where if you have somebody that can know something about cars that can help you. But when you're looking at the oil, you just want to make sure it's clean,
Mhm.
that it's not super black. That means, if it's clean, it's probably had a oil change recently, which, you want a car that's been well kept when you're buying a used car. You want to make sure no water's mixing in there. with the transmission fluid. You know, it's supposed to have like a somewhat sweet smell to it, and it
Okay.
shouldn't smell like burnt. Same thing with the oil. You don't want to make sure that it's, you know, doesn't smell like it's burnt. When you open up the engine, you know, you just kind of take a look at the engine itself to make sure that if you see like white stuff on the radiators, it means it's over coolant overheated. So you don't want that. And all. I mean, I'm not saying that if you if you don't see it, it means it hasn't overheated or anything like that. They can clean the engine, but if you see that, that's oh okay. Hold on, what's going on here? You may want to ask some more questions, or you may just want to go away, get away from that. But those are some things that you can look for when you're actually test driving the car.
All right. So I know that you've talked about maybe like, you know, looking for the history of the car and things like that. How does somebody do that?
Oh, sure. So, um, most popular car history place is Carfax,
Mhm.
and you know, you may have to spend a little money to buy a Carfax report, but
Mhm.
it's that money will save you in the long run. And I think some cases you might be able to get them free. Um, but if you have to, you know, you're talking about spending a few $1,000s. So if you have to spend a few dollars to get a Carfax report, it's worth it. Um, Sometimes a dealer will have a free Carfax report, or auto check as the other big car history vendor. So auto
Mhm.
check report, and you know, you just want to make sure that, and you can look at things with the local state in terms of if you just want to see if something has a clean history where it's not a salvage title or anything like that, where the title doesn't have a lien. You can check with your local DMV, and there's a national database, the uh, NVMITS, I believe. Yeah, reporting. So that's with the government, but you can check out title history at least on a car. So, excuse me. But those are things that you want to look at. You want to look at the history report, and then when you're looking at the history report, it's going to tell you you can see where a car came from. So if
Mhm.
you're somebody that's in the DC area, you may not want to buy cars from Michigan, you know, because
Right.
you're thinking about rust. You might have rust in the DC area, but it's going to be probably more rust in Michigan or Massachusetts or something like that. You know, if you're in Georgia, Alabama, in the Southeast, same thing. You may not want to buy something north of Virginia, just because of possible rust. Um, and sorry, things to look for a car. Look underneath the car. Make sure it doesn't have rust on it.
Mm.
But seeing that history, and just because a car comes from these regions, the northern regions, doesn't mean necessarily a bad car will necessarily have rust. But you may want to look at it a little bit more. You know, look underneath the hood, look underneath the car, look at the look at the wheels in between, things like that, just to make sure it's not rusted out. So that's one thing. Also, you know, if you're buying something that's local, you know, you may be able to see what part of town it came from, and maybe do some, um, I guess, detective work. Say, oh, okay, this is from this side. There might be more that it might be a better chance that this was kept up well because this is a money area. These are things as professionals that we look at. Okay.
Right.
And if it doesn't come from there, it doesn't mean it's a bad car per se. It doesn't automatically mean it's a good car either if it came from a
Mhm.
money area. But it's like, okay, may increase the chances that it's maintained. Also, those history reports can tell you if the previous owner was taking it to a reputable place, like where they
Mhm.
report the car getting serviced, you can see that, and that's something that you want to look at. And especially if you see that they were taken to a franchise, that's a good thing. And I'm gonna give you an insider tip for free.
Mhm.
If you see that
Thank
was
you so
going
much for
to
this.
yeah, there's no problem. Hey, we love the kids, so but you can call the franchises up and give them the VIN number of that car, and they can tell you what service was done to that vehicle. And if you see a vehicle that has a regular history of getting service, that's a great sign. And another reason you want to look at that history report is, I know the range is varies and situations vary on how much you're spending, how immediate the need is. But if you're not totally desperate, you want to see how many previous owners and accidents the car had. So car might look beautiful. And literally, I was looking at a car today, looking up a car today, looked great. It had 7 owners and 3 accidents. I'm not buying that to sell to
Ooh,
anybody. So I'm
right,
not doing that. And I don't want our young people doing that for themselves. Okay.
right.
Um, you know, unless something super duper cheap, but you might have some issues with that, and all.
Yeah.
So as a rule of thumb, don't you want to look at those things? You don't want that to happen. And again, you want to look at that history report because you want to make sure it has a clean title. A lot of people, hey, our world, is full of Facebook marketplace deals. Okay.
Hmm.
And you'll see something that seems extremely low. And this is something as a dealer I battle because, hey, I saw this car for $2,000 less than what you had before. But yeah, there's a
Hmm.
reason why. And I've had several customers come back, oh, this was going on. It was a salvage title, or oh man, I got there and it wasn't any good mechanically or anything like that. So I'm sorry if I'm veering off, but I just had to mention this.
No, no, you
Again, if
no. This is good.
something seems too good to be true, a lot of times it is. Especially coming from a dealer, even if you're buying from a private person. You just
Hmm.
kind of really want to know what's going on with that because um, where it's extremely discounted, that's usually a sign of something's wrong or a scam or something like that. That's how they suck you in. So I just want our new buyers, even our veteran buyers, to be, because some people have been, they have gray hairs like me, but they don't know don't know much.
Yeah.
And so these are some things in terms of this thing. So this is something to be careful of. Again, we see it a lot. You could probably just do a Google search, especially if you're in Georgia. It was something on the news not too long ago where a person was selling a title, car with duplicate titles, or it was a whole mess. I forgot what exactly was. So looking at that car history is very important.
So we're rounding out our conversation. But I wanted to ask one or two more questions. One
Mhm.
around, you know, buying an extended warranty or additional coverage, especially for a used car. And then with that, like car insurance, like
Mm,
how do you figure out where to go for car insurance?
sure. Extended warranty, I think, is good for a used car. Again, depending on the situation. Excuse me. Some I know we have a range of people that may have some money, some that don't have a whole lot of money. So
Mhm.
extended warranty. If I'm spending $5,000, well, I probably wouldn't even be able to qualify for one. You know, um, depending on the car if it's too old. But typically, extended warranties I think are a good insurance um, policy to have for your vehicle, just in
Mhm.
case something major goes out. Especially when you're talking about a used car and you don't know when that can happen. But I think it's good, uh, a good tool to have to protect yourself, to hedge, if you can afford it. And again, at some points, it's a law of diminishing returns. It may not be worth it if the car is too old. You just kind of
Right.
take your chances, pray to God, and drive. Okay, but and then in terms of getting car insurance, um, it's going to be tricky for a young person because youth is not your friend, so rates can be higher.
Mhm.
But you could shop around. Just don't stop at the first place or the first two places or even the first three places. I would check a few different places compare rates and compare coverages, and just make sure you're covered properly. So we think we're invincible when we're young. Sometimes we think we're invincible when we're old. We never know when accidents can happen, and so you just want to make sure you're properly covered. If you have the blessing of having parents that will look out for you, maybe you can be added onto their coverage and maybe get a discounted break. Sometimes they have breaks for being a student or being a good student. And they have other discounts. If you have a good driving record, they may have some discounts. So, just check around with the different insurance agencies and see what programs they offer. I know some of them have where you could put their device into your vehicle and they track your driving, and they'll give you a lower rate for that. Depending on your privacy, how you feel about privacy, you may or may not want to do that, but it is an option that you can look into. So those are just my guidance on the car insurance and the warranties.
Yeah, so I really appreciate all the wealth of information that you share with us today. Um, I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about your company and how we can get in contact with you or your team if people want to know a little bit more about you or engage your organization.
Sure. So again, the name of our company is MGM Auto, Making Great Moves. We're based out of Jonesboro, Georgia, which is about 15 minutes from the Atlanta airport on the south side of town. And we're a boutique dealer, independent dealer. My partner is Andy Malone. As I said, he's been a mechanic for over 25 years. I've been in the car business for about 10 years myself. And so our specialty is helping people find cars. We help people that may not have experience find cars. We do get cars that we sell in retail, but again, we go out and find cars. So we all dealers go to the dealers auctions and buy cars, but we thoroughly look at them. And also we have wholesale relationships with bigger car dealers where we buy cars direct. So if you're looking for something and want something vetted, we do that. We take pride in that. We're God-fearing guys. We're not perfect people, but we're God-fearing men. So we try to stand in that code, and we want to do right by people and do good business and stay legal in the state of Georgia. So we make it a point to do good business. So,
Yeah.
Sydney, thank you for sharing the information. You can email us at that email address there, info@mgmab.com. We're on Instagram, excuse me, at MGM Auto Boutique. And we're also on Facebook as The Real MGM Auto. And if you have questions, there's things that weren't covered here in the discussion. I kept it kind of general, but I'd be more than happy if you reach out to me directly. Me or my partner, we'd be more than happy to help you. And also, we cover repairs as well. So if you need repairs, we have that tool as well. And if you already have a vehicle and need an extended warranty, we do offer those as well. Can help you out with that.
Well, thank you so much, Rick, again for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. I am sure that our audience will gain a lot from this information. With that, I just want to say to our audience, thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself by engaging this program. I hope that this information will empower you in your process of purchasing a car. Watch all of our programs that will be rolling out once a month every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sidney Freeman Jr. YouTube page and Facebook page, and then you can access more information about us from deliberationmovement.com. communiversity.com. And with that, have a wonderful rest of your day.